Welcome to AI and the Media World, a Future Media Hub's podcast exploring how artificial intelligence is reshaping the world of media. I am Marijn Goossens, your host, and in each episode, we speak with leading thinkers and innovators to understand how AI is changing the way we create, distribute, and experience stories, and what that means for the future of media. Hello and welcome to episode 1 of our podcast series. Today we're exploring a big question. What is AI doing to the media world? And to help us unpack that, I am joined by Kristin from VRT. Kristin, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. Looking forward. Good, thank you.
Okay, so before we dive in, could you quickly introduce yourself a bit and tell our listeners what you do at VRT?
Yes. So I'm Kristin and I work at VRT Innovation, which is one of the ways of VRT is a huge organization and we want to explore innovation. And so I myself work at the research and development. So we think on what is changing in the world and think about like 3 or 5 years ahead. And my background specifically is in journalism. So I used to be a senior researcher and lecturer at university. And then recently I swapped because it's really exciting times in media due to AI, of course.
I mean, I think it has been quite a busy year for media. I mean, a lot of is changing right now, no?
Yes, and it's everything, everywhere, all at once, I think. From very fundamental questions on who are we, what is our unique selling proposition as making media, how do we differentiate it, but also how do we use AI, how do we improve the work that we're doing.
And what is the moment that you say that you felt, okay, things really start changing now?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pinpoint. I've been doing research in media and innovation for years. So it started off with, for example, mobile and then recommender systems, and then because I work in journalism, it's also fake news and misinformation and deepfake, synthetic media. So these things are all being called AI now. So the question is, what are we talking about when we're talking about AI? But mostly when we mention AI today, it's generative AI. And so if I do have to say one point in time, I think it will be the launch or the breakthrough of ChatGPT, like most of us. Because within weeks, you could tell that even at the office, at university, all the screens had ChatGPT open, and you could see how people were brainstorming with ChatGPT or improving their work. So within weeks, the technology kind of proved to be valuable.
Everything changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Very briefly, could you explain what is AI and what is generative AI?
Yeah. So I think AI as a whole means computational systems that somehow mimic human thinking. And often it has to do with advanced statistics. Yeah. So it is prediction. It can take enormous amounts of data. It can compute. It can learn from it. And it becomes better and better and better. Okay. AI does whatever it is taught to do. And so you should really call it statistics on steroids. So it's really prediction. And even the generative AI, what we're coming through now, is all also prediction. It kind of learns what you want to know, and using all the data it has, it's vast amounts of data, it predicts the answer that you want to get. Generative AI it creates unique content that looks like it was created by a human, but it's not. And so we mostly know text, but it's also video, audio. I think the biggest steps today being done are within audio, video, music, anything, 3D models even.
Very multimodal, a lot of different formats. Exactly. Okay, so AI is more the broad term. It means some kind of an intelligence. Okay, it's not really intelligence. It's based on data. If we look at the media industry now for a second, where do you see those applications very, very high level? Is this more in creating more efficient workflows, or is it really generating then content, media content?
Yeah, I think up until so far, most innovations that are happening are optimizing current workflows. That actually happens with all innovations. The first thing people do is, okay, what does it mean and how can I improve what I'm doing, or maybe change what I'm doing through different technologies? the true innovation, like new people with new ideas or having completely disruptive ideas on what news is, for example, that is something that we haven't done yet. And to be honest, I don't think that this will come from media companies themselves. It's likely somebody else who will develop something new and really change what media is and what media does. Like we now see new agencies, for example, popping up that are specialized in video production. So it's for text to video, for example. So you can ask and then it generates videos, super nice videos. That is something that we explore within media, but it doesn't really change our way of working yet or enhance or change our job yet. We are still the same people using different tools.
Okay.
So it's different approaches. I think it's a good thing that so far we are mostly sticking to the job we're doing and exploring what it can do and not drastically changing our work. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it.
We should look
or
at
look around and
that video output. Do you think at a certain moment people will be watching their TV and they will see generated video content and they might not even know that it is purely generated AI video?
I think we should at least prepare for that scenario to be true. That in time, especially because I have a background in journalism, whether something is genuine or not is a very basic thing to ask. So we should assume that soon the models will be so good that we won't be able to recognize it anymore. So we have to somehow recognize it in another way. It could be through brands, or it could be through the tone of voice, or because we are just mentioning this is an audio track, we could just say this is made by Future Media Hubs, and therefore people know. I think what people are doing now is mostly thinking about guidelines and how can we use it, or what can we do or can't we do with AI. And especially when it comes to imagery, because people are very sensible, I can see something, so it's true, or we should be very conscious about it. Today, the choice is, especially from VRT, no visual whatsoever will ever be generated by AI unless it is about AI.
Yeah.
So then when there is a visual, then we can use it.
Could you give us a very clear example of today, what in VRT, how AI is being used then today?
Yeah. I'll start off with the journalists, because there's actually guidelines on two different levels from VRT as a whole, but also within the newsroom, because that, of course, is still more specific. We really strive for what we call responsible use. So our journalists are allowed to use tools. They are even guided, and training is mandatory. Every journalist now has to follow settings or trainings on how you can use AI in a responsible way in your reporting. And so one of the things that we've done, like many media companies, is develop our own content management system. And so there is a prompting library. It's called the Smart Content Assistant, where people, for example, from the regional newsrooms, when they want to have a story and they want to publish it on Facebook, it somehow has to mention the city that it's about or the communality what it's about. That is something that you can really prompt, and so that there is a library where people can turn to, or journalists can turn to. Of course, they can still do it themselves. That's an important thing. We will never oblige people to use AI. It should be its choice. For example, what the Smart Content Assistant does is generate title suggestions, make summaries. Also, we have a translation from articles to WhatsApp. And I think that is the only thing that there is no human in the loop. Okay. The one thing that people are the happiest about is the transcription software when we do an interview. But still then, it seems such a logical thing to do, that you have an interview and you want to have it transcribed, and also the next step, have a draft article based on the interview that you're doing. But still, there's journalists saying, no, I would never use AI for transcription, because during transcribing, my mental process and how will I shape the story is happening. So that goes along with the choice and what people do. It's still people using tools, and you can choose whatever tool works for you.
So we've talked now about how you would use the tools or the technology, how VRT would do that. But and then we're at the VRT reimagining how news is being told or created, powered by AI. But on the other hand, we have tech companies or technologies in this
I would
society.
never say powered by AI, to be honest. Powered by AI sounds like created by AI. So it's more like supported by AI.
Supported creation.
Yeah, something, yeah.
Yeah.
Because VRT and powered by AI would not happen. We choose not to.
You choose specifically not to do that. Exactly. But on the other hand, there is news powered by AI, by ChatGPT itself today, right? Because I can go on ChatGPT and say, give me the news of today, and probably it will answer me. How do you feel about this?
Recently, this was also pinpointed in a conference by Ezra Eman. So he's the strategic director at NPO. And he was like, today, a lot of research or all the things that we're doing is how do we get AI into media? And that's also what we've been talking so far. How do we use AI in media production? But he said we should actually turn it around and ask, how is media and AI? Because if people indeed are shifting to the ChatGPTs of this world and asking them news, people expect us to have reliable, trustworthy information on systems we don't even control. Then how do we do it? Today, the number of people who are turning to ChatGPT for news is it's a small amount.
Okay. It's still small. It's not the majority yet.
No. We're talking about 2% in Europe. So it's
Europe.
really So it's really in Flanders, more in Western Europe. So it's a really small number. What is interesting is how people are using it. So, for example, can you update me about the news today? Is a question being asked. That is not something that we can maybe tackle, but something that we can learn from it is a lot of questions are being asked on, can you explain what is this about? Or can you tell me this story in a more simplified way? And that is things that we as a news company can also learn from. Apparently, the news that is being made by legacy media news organizations is too complicated, or it's not using the right wording that people understand what it says, or there is a lack of extra content. And so that too helps us understand and improve our own work.
AI is very good in reforming the content. So if I understand it well, you say we can see and get inspired by how AI does it, or interfaces like ChatGPT, and then bring it to our own platforms?
Yeah, for example, specifically one of the projects that we're working on now is how can a story designed by journalists be told in a conversational way? So how, and that's the most important thing also, because you mentioned personalized content. A lot of people think on personalized content in a content way, the message being changed or altered to who you are or what your background is. But I think it's the second part of what you said is the most interesting thing, and also the newest, the reformatting. How you want this, for example, is a podcast. I myself am not a podcast listener. I'd like to have an article written from it, for example, but that can be different for somebody else. It will also be video. And so the way or the format, the visual format in which it is told is altered and personalized, and not so much the content itself, because we still want our journalists to select the stories that you need to hear, to have the angles to make them, to do the analysis. But then how can you combine those two? That it is the story of the journalist in the format of the user and the AI system. And so that is something that we are currently reinventing because we haven't found the right solution yet.
Okay.
There are examples abroad, for example, in India, and that's most often small newsrooms that are more flexible to develop new technology, to test new technologies that are doing this. You as a user can click, I want this in text and video, and then it reformats itself and you consume it whatever you like. Or you can switch from the one to the other.
Yeah, there are platforms coming today, like platforms that are independent from news organizations, that are apps that create this liquid content yourself. But there are also now platforms rising, made from famous news companies that are offering that liquid service. The only thing what I wonder there is if users get their info from the native systems like ChatGPT or from us, but more like from VRT, but more in a liquid way, enhanced a bit by AI or not. We are also in the age of trust a bit, or antitrust. News is facing this issue. What do you think about this relationship between the rise of generative content and the trust issues we have?
Yeah. As I mentioned before, I think we should assume that soon we won't be able to tell whether content is genuine or not. So therefore, I think it becomes even more important that people know what journalists are, what they do, what news brands, what organizations, also who are experts, why are people telling specific stories, a lot of research now being done and also campaigns being done are on focusing on disinformation and focusing on fake content. I think we should actually turn it around and train people to recognize genuine content, and not genuine from a technical point of view, but genuine from reliable content. Let's put it that way. How it looks like or what it is created, it doesn't matter to me, but who tells the story and why is it being told? Those are the primary questions that we should train people to ask.
In the age of trust, we can also look maybe towards technology helping us in building that trust. We've seen the rise of proof of origin technology. Is this a technology that you think can help getting trust back, especially in an Gen AI era, or not really?
I'm doubtful. On
or if you maybe could explain also very shortly what it is.
So I'm quite doubtful. On the one hand, yes, because I think what these technologies do is they somehow label, and that can be in a visual or non-visual way, and make it the way that media is moving from the one to the other. It's called provenance. Make it trackable. Okay. So, for example, the newest iPhone, but also Sony cameras. If you take a picture from it, it makes a stamp. It is using it's called the C2PA technology. From there, if you put it in an Adobe suite, it also it gets and like that, you get a whole chain. In France, for example, there is already a news channel who's also doing or testing it with their video content. So each time something happens, you have to stamp it, and it gets an extra layer on top. And as such, you as either a journalist or a user can see, where does this come from? Where is it made? How has it been altered? Who is the owner? And what way has it been done? Will it help? It will help journalists, I'm quite sure. For example, say that there is breaking news, that there is an explosion or a flood, and people are filming. Today, it is still visible, or we have a fact-check newsroom, and they're trained to see whether content is genuine or not. So today, they can. But maybe tomorrow they won't. Yeah. If breaking news pops in and it has this label of this is genuine content, you can tell it has been done, it has been created and melted like this, then journalists know, okay, this is content that we can use. Content this is true. Not. Yes, yeah, exactly. So that is helpful. When it comes to the audience, I always think it's a bit dangerous. There's some people who do want to check and double check, and we should provide it. But on the other hand, it's not our job to ask people to double check our sources. That is our job as journalists, to provide information that's reliable. And I think by labeling content, this is genuine or this is fake, it somehow shifts away the responsibility for us as news producers to audiences.
Like who checks, where does it come from?
Exactly.
And then it's the audience checking, is it coming from that camera instead of we as journalists?
We can't expect people won't, because first, people are lazy. And second, that is, research already shows that overstressing that content might be fake makes them skeptical towards any content, predominantly journalism. So even people who have good intentions with information are also being questioned. And so if we keep on overstressing and opening labels and adding extra information, people will just be confused. We will, and that's why I think the responsible use of information or media is so important. It is our job to do the filtering. It's not people's job to do the filtering. But that's my personal sense, of course.
But it's a strong ending on that topic. Okay, I keep in mind it's our job.
yeah, exactly.
So to wrap up a little bit, maybe one final question. What would your suggestion be towards media companies dealing with this whole complex AI technology? What can they do? How should they deal with it?
Yeah. I think what people are doing today mostly is experimenting, and they should very much keep on experimenting with whatever you're doing because it learns you what it can do, but more importantly, what it can't do. And knowing what it can't do also helps you redefine on who are we and what do we want. But then I do think it is time to get beyond the experimental phase and think about really processing. For example, in a couple of weeks' time, we will do an exercise with our newsroom. And just as an exercise, how should the teams look like? And should they be reorganized? Should there be the way we work or collaborate? Now we work at the innovation department, which is literally the other side to the newsroom, which is the other building. We're not collaborating, but maybe we should. So that is still the experimentation phase. And I think now we should go to more scalable, what was a good experiment, what was a nice thing to have, and then from there, look, how can it be scaled and truly change our processes, but also remain who we are.
Okay, yeah. So I remember going from a pilot more to scalable solutions while still remaining true to ourselves as a public broadcaster. Amazing. Thank you so much, Kristin, for this interesting info. How can listeners stay in touch with you or VRT Innovation? How can they know what you're all doing?
The easiest for me is just find me on LinkedIn. That's Kristin Van Damme. I try to be as open on many things related to innovation and journalism within VRT. But of course, we also have the VRT International, where we share our projects, stuff that we're doing. And also, if people are Dutch speaking, they can join our Innovation Lab, which is a group of people that we actively involve in our research and development. So when we have prototypes or questions that we are asking ourselves, we want to ask it to the people, and so they can also help us shaping
their input.
So that would also be
co-collaboration. Amazing. Okay, super great insights. It sounds like AI is a bit a double-edged sword, for the media world. It offers so much opportunities, but there's also things to keep in mind. And we should stay true to ourselves. That's what I'm gonna remember.
Yeah, we are still humans, and humans telling stories, and that also makes us human. And AI can do amazing things with that, but also we should still remain human-centered in everything we do.
Yeah, human-centered content production. Okay, thank you, Kristin, so much for painting this whole nuanced picture. Okay, so we have seen how AI is transforming how stories are created and shared. But there's another layer to this revolution, and that is language. Most AI systems speak fluently English. But how does that affect people who speak Dutch, Finnish, or even Swahili? In our next episode, we'll explore why it matters that AI truly understands our own languages, not just linguistically, but also culturally. We'll ask what's at stake for smaller language communities around the world, and what it means for identity, inclusivity, and creativity in the age of AI. Joining me to unpack this interesting question is AI researcher and linguist Thomas Winters. So this was today's episode of AI in the media world. If you enjoyed this conversation, consider sharing it with colleagues or friends. You can find always more insights and updates on futuremediahubs.com or on LinkedIn. I am Marijn Goossens, your host, and thanks for listening. Stay curious and stay connected.
Future Media Hubs, innovation through collaboration.